Today's movie opens in 1956 Chicago with Leonard Burling, an English tailor who runs a custom tailor shop in a neighborhood controlled by the Irish mob. And this mob is headed by Roy Boyle. Leonard moved to Chicago a couple years ago after a fire burned down his last shop, killing his wife and daughter. And the only thing he brought with him to Chicago was a bunch of fabric, and Roy was his first customer there. And after loving his work, Roy makes Leonard his family tailor. And this gave Leonard a good business, but the mob uses his shop as a stash house for secret mail and dirty money. And Leonard has this one worker, Mabel, his receptionist. She's full of dreams and joy, and she wants to travel the world one way or another. And her recent and long-standing dream is to leave this crime-ridden neighborhood. Mabel goes out with Richie, Roy's son and his second in command. Mabel thinks that if she dates him, she could get the money to achieve her dreams and travel the world. Mabel and Leonard have a complicated relationship as they both kinda see each other as father and daughter, and they care about each other a lot. One night, Leonard was working late and falls asleep in the shop. He hears drunk Mabel and Richie enter the shop, and Mabel is looking for her house keys. And Richie is complaining about Francis, Roy's chief enforcer and caretaker of Richie. Francis became part of the family after he took a bullet for Roy, but Richie doesn't really like him, and he thinks he's after his position, so he doesn't trust him at all. Meanwhile, Leonard hears the conversation between Richie and Mabel. We hear Richie telling her Francis thinks that he's a rat in the family, giving information to the police and rival gangs, but he thinks Francis is just paranoid. Mabel calms him down and they leave after she finds her keys. The next day, Richie and Francis come to the shop. They check the mail and find a marked mail with a tape inside of it. Late that night, while working late again, Leonard hears his door knock. He rushes to open and finds Richie and Francis at the door, and Richie has been shot in the gut and he can hear police sirens outside. They take Richie to the back room and put him in the cutting table. Richie's losing a lot of blood though, and Leonard recommends to take Richie to the hospital, but Francis forces him to stitch up Richie inside the shop using the materials he has. Leonard sews up Richie's wound, stopping the blood flow, and saves Richie's life. Francis then calls Roy and tells him that they got ambushed by La Fontaine's, a rival mob in the neighborhood. Roy tells him that he'll come to the shop and to wait for him there. Francis is holding a briefcase that's holding the tape. He reveals to Leonard that the tape is a copy of an FBI recording which the rat recorded. Francis explains he got the tape from high people in the government, but before he and Richie could listen to it and find out who the rat is, they got ambushed by the gang La Fontaine. Francis orders Leonard to watch after Richie and the briefcase holding the tape until he comes back. Leonard goes back to working on his coat, which had bloodstains and now needs to be redone. Richie wakes up after a little while. Leonard offers him some water and tells him the story of the day he moved to this neighborhood. Leonard then asks Richie who he thinks the rat is, but he doesn't have any suspicions. Leonard then reveals himself to be the rat and that he's been selling information to the enemies and the FBI. Intense silence falls in the room, but then they both start laughing, with Richie saying, "You had me there," and just then, someone knocks the door and Leonard goes to get it. It was Francis who was back, and he asks him how Richie's doing. And Leonard tells him that Richie's lightheaded from the blood loss, and that he's also talking about the tape and that he knows the rat is Francis. Francis barges into the back room and Richie was standing in front of him. Francis tells him that he found a place with a cassette player and that he came back to take the tape. Richie then offers to go with Francis to listen to the tape, but Francis says no, reminding him that Roy is coming soon and that he shouldn't leave the shop in this condition. But Richie doesn't take no for an answer and grabs the briefcase. Francis also grabs it, and when they pull it from each other, the briefcase opens and it's empty. Richie then points his gun on Francis and accuses him of being the rat. Francis tells Richie to calm down and give back the tape. During detention, Leonard steps on something, distracting Richie, which Francis uses to take out his gun and shoot Richie on the neck and kill him. He and Leonard then hide the body in a box, just as Roy and his bodyguard Monk arrive at the shop. They greet Roy and he immediately asks where his son is. Francis tells him that Richie left earlier with the tape alone. Roy orders Francis to find Richie while they wait at the shop and see if Richie returns. As they wait, Roy and Leonard talk about the rat. Roy reveals the tape was provided by The Outfit, a nationwide crime syndicate founded by Al Capone. Roy explains he wanted to join the outfit network to get prestige and resources for his family, but this rat problem is causing issue in the application. Roy then asks Leonard on what happened to Richie because he noticed his son's coat in the shop. Leonard responds Richie must have just forgotten his coat, but Roy doesn't believe him, and he threatens him to tell him what exactly happened to his son. But before Leonard could tell him what really happened, Francis returns holding a gun to Mabel's head. Francis tells Roy he found Richie's blood at Mabel's house and that he must have gone to her. Roy then asks where Richie is, but she tells him that she doesn't know. Roy thinks since Richie left the shop without his coat, he must have gone to her place to get another one. Francis jumps in and agrees and also suggests that the reason she's not telling them is because she is the rat. Leonard defends Mabel by saying that he would bet his life on her being innocent. But Roy listens to Francis and orders Monk to take her to the back and torture her for information. But before they take her to the back and torture her, the shop's phone rings and Leonard answers it. He then tells Roy that the call was from Richie and that he's hiding in the 31st Halstead Street and is waiting for Roy to pick him up in 20 minutes. Roy believes Leonard, but Francis insists on staying in the shop, saying that he should keep an eye on Mabel since she might be the rat. Roy agrees and leaves with Monk, leaving Francis in the shop, and they don't torture her yet. After they leave, Francis puts his gun on Mabel. He plans to kill her and puts Richie's corpse in her home, pinning his death on her. But Leonard stops him and convinces him that she can help them out. Francis asks him how, and Leonard reveals that Mabel is indeed the rat who has been sleeping with Richie to get information and selling it to the La Fontaine gang. And she's been doing this so she can accumulate enough money and travel the world, which is her dream. He also reveals that Mabel helped the FBI to plant a bug in the shop. Leonard then convinces Francis to betray Roy and run the business once he is killed in the ambush he's going to right now. Time is running out, and Mabel needs to call the La Fontaine in the next few minutes to tell them where Roy will be so that they can ambush him and kill him. Francis is tempted and eventually likes and agrees to this offer. Mabel then calls Violet La Fontaine, the leader of the gang, and she gives her Roy's location and also offers to sell her the tape. After some time, Violet knocks the door, and Francis plans to kill her and take all of the city for himself. And so he tells Mabel to give him a signal once she makes the sale to Violet, and then, once Violet is distracted, he's gonna come out of the back room and kill her. Before opening the front door, Mabel tells Leonard that Francis will kill them too after he kills Violet. She opens the door and Violet has arrived with her 2 bodyguards and a briefcase full of money to trade for the tape. She shows Mabel the money and asks for the tape, but Leonard interrupts them saying, "Are you trying to rob us? Where's the money?" And while talking, Leonard signals to Violet, warning her about Francis. Francis runs out with his gun, but Violet's bodyguards are waiting for him with their guns out. She then reveals that she's killed Roy, and her bodyguards shoot Francis twice in the back and kill him. Violet then makes the payment to Mabel, takes the tape, and leaves the shop. Mabel watches the money, but she's scared that the outfit might find him. But Leonard reveals that he's been devising the mob by faking the mail from the outfit and recording a fake tape and marking it with the outfit's seal. And the tape that Violet has now is also a fake. Leonard also reveals that he's been recording everything that happened that night. He gives her the tape and tells her to give it to the FBI and urges her to use the money to live her dreams. Leonard knew from the first that Mabel was working for the FBI, so he wanted to help her since he cares about her as a daughter, and he created the events of the night to achieve what he wants. Mabel takes the money and the tape and she leaves the shop. Intending to start over again, Leonard douses the shop with gas and lights it on fire. The shop starts burning, but before he leaves, Francis gets up and he tries to kill him, and he manages to shoot him on the arm before he runs out of bullets. Francis struggles to move, but he takes out his knife to finish off Leonard. Leonard then tells Francis that he used to be a gang enforcer just like him when he was in England. But one day, he was ordered to do something that he couldn't, and then left the gang and hid from them for years. He started his tailor shop, met his wife, had a daughter, but one day the gang got to him and got their revenge on him by starting the fire that burned down the shop and killed his family. From this we learned that his motivation was not to really help Mabel, and that he really hates mobs and gangs for killing his family. Francis rushes to stab him, but Leonard stabs him on the neck using those giant scissors that tailors use. And Francis, finally, is officially dead now. Leonard then grabs his belongings and leaves the store as it burns down. And this is how our story comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed our recap for today. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys on my next recap. I love you all. Bye.